So quiet.
Oh, yeah. I think we had 10 seconds of quiet. We only need 10 seconds. All right, so now how are these levels? That looks good. Okay, so my name's Rose Balistreri, and this is Ming Zheng, and we're with the Field Study Program at UWM doing documentation on the historic water tower neighborhood for the Field Study Program this summer. And I'd like to thank you for participating in being and agreed to being interviewed. So if you could just say your name and both of you say your name. You first.
My name is AngelaGeorgeJacobi.
My name is George Jacobi.
And your address is?
2375 North Wall Avenue.
Okay, and could you tell me about how long you've lived in the neighborhood? And you mentioned that you were transplants, so where you came from?
We moved to Milwaukee in into this house in 1978 from Chicago.
Evanston, really.
Evanston, yeah.
And you moved here because of your job?
Yes.
You have to talk too, you know.
Well.
Yes, and what I know you're kind of retired now, right? Are you retired?
I'm very much retired. I've been retired for quite some time.
Okay.
But it's hard work.
Yeah.
You'll find that out.
Yeah, I got a job offer here that we couldn't refuse. That was very good, from Johnson Controls, and that's worked out very well. And now that I'm retired, that works out reasonably well. And we picked this house originally because it was close to the highway, so Angela could hot-foot it back to Illinois.
Oh boy. So you weren't so sure about being in Milwaukee?
Well, I was. Well, not sure, but...
Well, we lived in Evanston. We've never been to Milwaukee.
Oh, wow.
Oh, we have. But not
No.
really.
No, I think once I drove with one of my artist friends. She had a show, so her friend who lived here met us at the bus station and drove us, but only up until the water tower. I mean, we never saw the rest of it. But I had my friends there, I had my life there, and I didn't think, and when I saw that the lights went on Wisconsin Avenue, the caution lights, at 8 o'clock at night, I knew I was in trouble.
I know what you mean. And the other rumor, which is not true, is that there's a streak along 94, a heel mark coming here.
Well,
Anyhow,
we have been very happy
here.
here. We've been very happy here. This house was empty for 3 years, and even though the lady realtors would only show me houses in the suburbs, and I kept telling them, no, I'm a city girl. I want to live in town. Oh, but all the executives live in the suburbs. I said, where they live. And I personally want to live where I can get to the highway easily and get to Chicago.
It's absolutely true, and it was a security blanket. And it took us a while to become part of the community, but I think we are.
Oh, I know. We're very happy here, and we're very comfortable here.
Involved in things in which we would not be involved in Chicago. Opera, symphony.
We went to those things, but we weren't involved in them.
Now we're on committees and on boards and actually involved in the fine and performing arts. So that's a lot of fun.
Made a difference in our life.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of the size of Milwaukee
Yes.
that it makes it much easier to
Yes,
get
it is.
involved in things in a more
Yes, definitely.
profound way?
Right,
That's
right.
true.
It's, but it's really sort of divided too, in a strange way, you know. There's them and us, the East Siders and the West Siders,
Oh, uh-huh.
you know, and that took a while
That's a bad
to
thing.
understand. It's like the
Yeah,
South Side of Chicago versus the North Side of Chicago.
Yeah, well, we understand it, but it certainly isn't good.
Did you encounter that in the arts groups also?
No, it's all mostly East Siders, you know,
Oh, yeah.
North Shore.
Yeah.
Right.
North Shore type, but East Siders in
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
How that divided.
And that's
But anyhow, the house,
Mhm.
having been empty, then that was a good selling point because I was working already. I was in an apartment, and Angela was in Evanston, and so getting going was important. It's just strange. Do you want some of the history of this house?
Yes, yes.
well,
No, go ahead.
you can tell.
You can fill in the names.
Okay.
Well, it was owned by Edwin and Louise Lemp Pabst. They were first cousins. They were both of the Pabst Brewery family. They had a common grandmother and grandfather. And Mrs. Pabst was an artist, studied in Paris, and lived there for almost 20 years. And around the time that, I guess 1935 or so, things in Europe were kind of funny, so she came back to the United States. And she and Edwin married, but they could not marry, because they were first cousins, they had to marry outside of the state. So they got married in New York State, and then moved to Illinois, and he continued commuting for his business because they couldn't live here because they were cousins. And once 2 years went by, he lived in Lake Forest, and 2 years went by and they moved here. And in that 2 years that they were planning on it, she changed the house physically in a few ways. She took out the original windows and made, because she was an artist, so she wanted the views, and she made these picture windows, and she did that all around. She enclosed what we thought might have been a funny porch type of thing because of the way it's built. And she put Casota stone up, marble stone. Mm. She took out the heating radiators and put radiant heating. And this is on the dining room, living room.
There's a good story with that. When we first acquired the house, before we moved in, really, both of us, we threw a little party for our friends.
No. That's not the way it happened. Our friend, who was an architect, and I asked him to help us with redesigning the kitchen because it was a 1905 kitchen. And so he came up, and they had mutual friends here, Bob Corrigan and Joanne Johnson at the time. And Joanne and Mary worked together at Simon Foster or something like that in Chicago. And so and my friend Mary, being my Greek friend, said, well, we want to see the house too. So we brought him here. And Bill, with his architectural eye, went through the whole place. You know, he wanted to get a feel for it. And he turns to George, he said, where are the radiators? It was 80 degrees in this house. It was March. And it was 80 degrees in this house, so we didn't think about radiators. Mm-hmm. But the thermostats were nailed.
Radiators, oh my God, did I forget something?
The thermostats were nailed at 80 degrees.
Because the lady who lived last year, which was Louise Lemke, later, what's the last name? Anyhow, she was getting elderly, she wanted heat, the servants didn't, and so she nailed the thermostat. I mean, literally, a nail through the leather.
I'm just going to pause it for a second. I'm not supposed to talk.
Oh.
So that's why I'm like, and I can't say, oh, wow, or, you know what I mean? Because it makes it much easier to have the clips of your interview. So that's why I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a nice job.
I wish I had her hair.
I know, isn't it gorgeous? I wish I had her hair too. Oh, well. So the radiators?
So she made the third floor into her studio. And that
Do you have any of her artwork?
No.
Do we have what?
But
Any of her artwork?
we don't have it, but
We don't have it,
Judy
but it
Ramazzini has a portrait that she made of Judy Ramazzini, because Judy lived on terrace and would come through the backyard and play in the garden, and she would say to her, "Come on up and pose for me." So Judy has a wonderful portrait of her when she was a teenager, a
And
younger
there are
girl.
other empty portraits that are around.
Mm.
The last show was at the bridal shop that went into
Oh,
Zita's?
Zita's, now that it's Zita's, yeah.
uh,
Zita.
was it Zita? That
Peg Bradley?
Moved in.
It's where the Watts.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Watts
Mhm.
building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know they're around. I don't know who has
We
them.
had a very interesting visit from her fourth cousin, he was 29 at the time. This is now a couple years ago. He's in Bloomington, Illinois, and he is doing a family history about Louise and that part of the family. So he was very anxious to come, and we spent a whole afternoon together. And he I guess he comes into town periodically. I missed seeing him the last time, but and he seems to be coming along. But we showed him around and talked to him about what we found. And
So back to.
Do you know why the house was vacant for 3 years?
it was I do know. Edwin passed away. It was like, I think, I may not be correct on the month, but he passed away February, and they were quite devoted. I mean, they were, they were very, very close. And she decided that she did not want to live any longer. So she died in her bedroom upstairs. She committed suicide. She took pills.
Oh my God. How long after he was gone?
About 3 months, 2 months,
Oh,
2-3 months.
Wow.
There were wonderful stories when I don't know if you remember the shoe store that was on Silver Spring, Decker's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he lived kitty corner to us, and he said, what I miss about the Louise is she would play the piano and the door would be open and the martini shaker would be on the piano, and when Edwin came home, she would be playing. He had wonderful stories. Because he lived in that house for 36 years.
And then the house was empty and was used as a symphony house once in that period. But other than that, and we bought it, and we did not get the
lot.
That was not part of it. It had been separated. The house was bought by someone else who decided that it would be easier to sell if he separated it. So legally, the yard was separated, still is. And we only bought the house. Years later, we bought the lot next to it.
Yeah.
We
So
didn't change the rule. It's still legally separate properties. I pay separate taxes.
Yeah,
on
we
each.
decided to leave it that way.
Yeah, it might come in handy, who knows? And there's no harm.
But we still know
we acquired just the house and fixed it up it needed fixing. It had some cracked walls and all sorts of other
Oh, the
things.
staircase was all, the stucco was all separated. She had all her artwork up on the, I had pictures of her artwork.
And she had a chairlift on this main staircase.
First thing that
And
went.
Angela said, "That's the first thing to go." I said, wait, you never know when it comes in handy. It went. And then some years later, when she had knee replacements, we wished we'd had it, but instead...
No, not that, not in the front hall.
Well,
we found it, we put it in the back staircase.
We put chairlifts all the way up and down the back. There's one going down the cellar, then one coming from this floor to the next, and one from this next
To the
floor
third,
up.
yeah.
And so we
I needed
no
it
longer
there.
have that problem, except the maintenance of the chairlifts, which is substantial.
Yeah,
Anyhow.
that's a pain.
So when the house was reunited with the yard, we changed the nature path a little bit, and we hope it comes up. It's been a late year.
The first, we came in March, and it was warmer than this past this year, and by April I put all my stuff on the flowers and the stuff on the porch. The next day they were all gone. They were all stolen, and I've had for 3 years in a row. This year, last year, and the year before, my pots have been stolen again. So the definite changes in the neighborhood, and the traffic for the 4th of July was always a little heavy and interesting to watch, but now it's like that all summer.
Oh.
It's all summer, and we've had a robbery in front of our house of a young couple. We had another lady walking down the street, a guy running by, stealing her purse. So the neighborhood in some ways has changed, and yet and also we have a lot more kids on the block, which is wonderful. A lot of younger parents have come, and so there are younger kids, and that's nice.
It's a transition, but it's not bad because, comparatively speaking, it's still a wonderful neighborhood.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about raising your family here? I don't.
Oh, our kids were grown up.
Oh, your kids were grown up when you moved here.
Oh yeah, yeah. They didn't
Oh.
live here.
Oh, I didn't realize
Except
that.
3 years ago, our grandson lived here for a year.
But it's
Oh.
going at UWM, so
Yeah.
that worked out. And
Yeah.
So your children were all raised in Evanston. Or
We have
Chicago?
one son, and he was raised in Chicago and Evanston, and when we moved here, he and his girlfriend moved to Germantown, and then they got married,
Oh.
and all the grandchildren were born in Germantown. The 3 grandchildren.
Do they still live in Germantown?
Well, one lives now in Neenah, one lives here in Milwaukee, and the other lives in Port Washington.
Oh, so they're close at
Oh, yeah.
least.
their
That's nice.
children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my son still lives in Germantown.
Could you talk a little bit about your involvement in the arts community here? I mean, I know that I see you at a lot of things. You go to a lot more than I do, but
We have more time.
yeah.
Well, we were very fortunate in Chicago to meet some young artists, young graduates from the Art Institute. Some of the young men had returned from war and went to the Art Institute. That's where some of the ladies met the boys and got married, like those two. And so we really had a very interesting and diverse association with the artists. And then we got to know some people in the galleries, and that was kind of interesting. So little by little, as we could afford it, we would buy paintings from them, and the basic core collection of the things that are important to us come from Chicago. But once we lived here, and we began to know the artists here, we started collecting their work too. So now, basically, we collect Wisconsin art. So, could you want some coffee? Would you like some coffee?
Do you want some coffee?
Is it off? At the beach.
Okay, so you were saying something about the neighborhood itself is kind of
Well, we don't seem to have the services that we used to have, and our Wall Avenue is like a speedway, and the
With
traffic
potholes.
is getting heavy on it, and it's a lot of potholes. The streets are not being taken care of, and you sort of have to call the city for everything, and you don't have the best alderman in the world, but I shouldn't say that, but we don't.
Who is your? Oh, you don't like him?
No.
Oh.
No, we had that robbery, and I called, and his dumb secretary says, "Oh, we haven't got time to to do anything about this." I mean, he's interested in the money part of North Avenue, the real estate.
All this is being recorded, you know that?
No, I don't think they got that.
Oh, yes.
Did you get that?
I'm gonna take that